everyone. In this video, we talk about Chapter 14, talking about cost allocation, customer profitability analysis, and sales and variance analysis. So I would say this chapter basically having two parts, and then it listed 6 learning objectives. So let's go ahead and go through the textbook together. First one, knowing what's the customer revenue and customer different cost based on different customers. So this is your customer profitability analysis. When we talk about profitability, so how do you get the profit? It's your revenue minus your cost, right? It's your revenue minus your cost. So we have to first talk about revenue, and then we talk about the cost. We talk about revenue, we talk about the cost. For the cost, you have to know there are 5 different levels of the cost, which is kind of we call the customer cost hierarchy because we have 5 different levels. Talk about more detail in class, but read the textbook to get a general idea. And then the exhibit 14-2, I don't really think this is important. You don't need to worry too much on this one. And then I would suggest you recommend to read 563, and then this table kind of talking about you have 4 different customers. And then the reason I want you to read is on this chapter, on this paragraph especially, they explained why customer A and B, they have similar orders, or let me see. Sorry, not this one. My bad. Let's keep reading, and then you read 563, and then let me see. Okay, so this paragraph, still I'm right on the paragraph, read this paragraph, but based on this table, exhibit 14-3, you can find out for customer A and customer B, they have a similar revenue, but also similar operating income, right? But for the next 2 customers, they have similar revenue around 4.5 million. You can find out your 3rd customer, even the revenue is almost 5 million. Finally, their profitability is actually negative. So it's actually negative, while your 4th customer has a positive profitability. So you wonder why the revenue, they are similar, but the profitability is so different. So as I said earlier, the page 563, this paragraph talking about the explains the reasons for the differences. So I would suggest you to read this one and then look at the table. I will say this one, check the numbers to find out why your 3rd customer has a big loss. Okay. And then next one, learning objective 2, talking about the customer profitability profile. This is not really hard. I believe as long as you read the textbook, you will get a story. On page 567, they talk about other factors you need to think when you allocate the resource to your customers. One more time, read them so that you can pick the right answer from the multiple choice. Then talking about learning objective 3, here is your cost hierarchy based operating income statement. Exhibit 14-6 is an important table. Make sure you read this table related with the paragraph to get a general idea before we talk about the detailed practice example in class. Okay, so you read also some parts of 570 or 571, so just to get a general idea. Learning objective 4, talking about cost allocation. So for this part, you need to know, like exhibit 14-8, you need to know this part. There are 4 criteria. Read it, and then the textbook also explains in detail. Read it before the class so that you can get the right answer from your multiple choice. We will not talk about learning objective 5, so you can skip this one. And then look at this fancy table. Luckily we are not talking about that one. So related with learning objective 5, we don't worry about that one. And then the last part is learning objective 6. This is the second part of this chapter, and I would say this is the main part, talking about sales variance. We will practice this a lot in the text in class. So what I'm trying to tell you is this talking about the variance. You have learned your budget data, your actual data. You should be able to know what's the meaning of static budget, what's the meaning of flexible budget, right? You have all learned this, I believe, in chapter 7, if I'm right, or chapter 8. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you forget about those variants, make sure you go back to your chapter 7, chapter 8. You see, especially chapter 7, I believe, from your cost accounting, you know actual flexible budget variance, flexible budget, and then you know sales volume variance and static budget. This is on page 254 on chapter 7. So before we start talking about chapter 14, I'm talking about a fancy, more advanced example. Because you have more than two products, make sure you know chapter 7 of the flexible budget variance or sales volume variance. So chapter 14, sales variance, is built on that part, but you can say now you have 2 different products or 2 different channels. So because of that, we have a new variance. We call it a sales mix variance. So I'm not going to really read this part because we will practice a lot in the class, but make sure you go back to chapter 7, make sure you get a general idea, and then that's it. I think we will practice the detail, but everything in the textbook of learning objective 6 will be tested in your exam. And then you have all the variance. We have a new thing talking about market share and market size. Some students are kind of confused with this one because this is the new part. So you may want to spend more time on this new variance. And then make sure you know all the calculation, and then you know now we have these different 4 levels of our variance. Make sure you know those 4 different levels. And then that's it for our chapter 14.